Burkina Faso just made a move that sent shockwaves across the globe. Every inch of its land is now officially state-owned. Foreign corporations banned from owning it. Private investors with offshore ties cut off. For the first time in its modern history, the land beneath Burkinabe feet belongs to the state, and by extension, the people. But that's not what had the world gasping. What's got everyone talking is what Traore plans to do with that land next. Because this isn't about locking the land away, it's about unlocking something bigger. So what's the plan? Let's break it down. But before we continue, we would like to ask you a question. Is Captain Ibrahim Traore the type of president you would want in your country? Tell us your country in the comments section and tell us your reason. This wasn't a riot. It wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't even breaking news. And yet, with one simple signature, Burkina Faso did something that entire continents have danced around for generations. It reclaimed the very ground it stands on. No flashy slogans, no diplomatic back and forth, just a law, sharp, final, and unapologetic. A law that didn't ask for permission, a law that told the truth no one else wanted to say. African land has become a commodity for outsiders, bought, sold, traded, mined, developed. Not by the people who live on it or work it, but by people who fly over it in private jets and sign contracts from corporate towers oceans away. Traore's government said enough. The new rule is crystal clear. Every piece of land in Burkina Faso now belongs to the state. That includes the cities, the farms, the forests, the ancestral graves. It doesn't belong to landlords. It doesn't belong to colonizers' descendants. And it absolutely does not belong to foreign developers planning to turn sacred ground into shopping centres and luxury resorts. From now on, the land isn't something you own. It's something you access through your connection to the nation itself. This isn't privatisation. It's the opposite. It's a full stop. A reset. Foreigners, they're out of the buying game. No exceptions. They can still lease land if they're lucky. Short leases last 18 years. Strategic ones stretch to 99. But ownership, that door is closed. For good. But here's where it gets really bold. This law doesn't just block outsiders, it also dismantles quiet inequality inside Burkina Faso. No more silent land grabs by local elites. No more wealthy families sitting on miles of farmland while everyday citizens fight for space to grow food. Under this policy, everyone, from the rural farmer to the urban youth, has the same claim. Not to own, but to access. Because the point isn't property, it's possibility. And instead of drowning in paperwork and endless promises, Traore's government did the one thing no one expected: cut out the middleman. In this new model, the state isn't selling the land, it's safeguarding it. Not as a merchant, but as a steward. Because once land becomes a product, it's no longer about who needs it most, it's about who can pay the highest price. And that always favours the wealthy, not the community. That's exactly what's been happening all over Africa for decades. Huge parcels, sometimes the size of entire cities, have been handed over to foreign corporations for almost nothing. In return, locals are pushed off their land, relocated, or left to watch bulldozers level the homes they grew up in, all in the name of progress they never asked for. This new law stops that cycle dead in its tracks. It even goes further by scrapping the infamous 1975 Expropriation Act, an apartheid-era relic that made it easy for the state to seize land under vague excuses like public interest. That loophole? Closed. Tight. Now imagine you're a multinational eyeing a lucrative West African project. You've got cash, you've got lawyers, you've got lobbyists. But in Burkina Faso, none of that matters. You'll never own the land. Ever. Doesn't matter how shiny the check is. To the global business world, that's heresy. To Burkina Faso, it's healing. Because this isn't just policy, it's restoration. It's about returning to a time when the land wasn't a line item in a budget, but a living connection between people and place. A bond that predates borders, contracts, and colonizers. And this isn't just about a few farms in the countryside. This is everything: cities, mining zones, solar fields, forests and rivers, spiritual sites and water systems. Under this law, all land is sacred. Not because of what it can produce, but because of what it means to the people standing on it. Yes, critics are already in attack mode. They're calling it extreme, dangerous, anti-investment. Some are waving constitutions written decades ago, many under foreign pressure, as if those documents hold more moral weight than the communities they ignored. But Traore isn't blinking, because he knows the real risk isn't losing foreign investors, it's losing the people, losing them to displacement, to migration, to hopelessness. But if the land can't be sold out from under them, maybe they'll stay on the land, stay in the villages, stay rooted. And when people stay, they build. That's the hidden brilliance of it all. This isn't anti-growth, it's anti-exploitation. It doesn't block development, it forces it to evolve. Traore isn't closing the door on progress, he's building a new path, one where outside investment doesn't dictate the terms, it adapts to the people. And now that the state holds the deed to every inch, planning finally has a blueprint. In this new era, infrastructure doesn't have to tiptoe around private empires. No more delays because of absentee landlords blocking roads or foreign investors halting bridges. The blueprint for Burkina Faso can now be redrawn, for people, not profit. But here's the reality. Changing laws is easy compared to changing history. The signatures are dry, the declarations have echoed across borders, but the damage left behind by decades of exploitation, inequality, and poverty won't be erased with ink. That's a battle that goes far deeper and will take much longer to win. Still, what Traore has created isn't about giving everyone land titles, it's about giving everyone a chance to plant, a chance to build, a chance to dream. Not ownership, opportunity. Because that's the goal. The land has been reclaimed. Now it needs to be reborn. It has to be reconnected with those who were pushed off it generations ago. It must be handed to those who've never had the right to step foot on it without fear. And it needs to be repurposed for those who've spent their lives scraping survival from it, but never once tasted the power it holds. The paperwork? Done. The speeches? Delivered. The headlines? Global. But land alone doesn't liberate anyone. Land without access is frustration. Land without tools is suffering. Land without purpose is just more dirt. So now comes the hard part. Burkina Faso has drawn its line. It's declared its land untouchable by foreign hands. But now that the soil is safe, it has to be put to work. By the people who need it most. That's what Traore's government understands. This wasn't a headline grab. It's a strategy. Reclaiming was step 1. Redistributing is step 2. And this time the VIP line isn't for businessmen or political insiders. It's for the people who've been standing at the back of the line for decades. The small farmers, the backbone of Burkina Faso. Scattered across the countryside are thousands of men and women who've lived on this land for generations, yet never called it theirs. They tilled soil owned by landlords they never met. They grew food for corporations that shipped profits overseas. Now they're first in line. Now the government is handing plots back to families, not as charity, but as restoration. A way of saying, this was always yours, we're just making it official. And it doesn't stop at land. These families are also getting access to agricultural programs, community water systems, and training in everything from irrigation to climate-smart farming. Because let's be honest, land without tools is just a patch of dirt, but land with support, that's power. Then comes the second wave, women's cooperatives. Across Africa, women do most of the agricultural labour, but own almost nothing. Traore's reform flips that upside down. Land is now being directly allocated to women's groups, not just for farming, but for livestock, food processing, and entire agro-based enterprises. This isn't symbolic, it's economic strategy. Because when women control land, communities thrive. Food gets on tables. Incomes rise. Kids go to school. It's not a guess. It's proven. Next up, the youth. Half of Burkina Faso's population is under 17. For years, that's been framed as a problem. Too many people, not enough jobs. But what if it's actually a superpower? The government sees it that way. Now, young people are being offered farmland through state leases, tied to national job initiatives. But they're not just being told to plant corn. They're being trained for agro-entrepreneurship. That includes tech-based irrigation, smart seed development, solar-powered drying systems, vertical farming, storage, and packaging businesses. It's not just about getting youth back to the land, it's about giving them a reason to stay. Instead of chasing dead-end jobs in crowded cities, they can build profitable futures from their own soil. And here's the clever part. Foreign investors aren't locked out, they're just following new rules. If a company wants land, it has to go through the state, apply for a lease, and prove its project aligns with Burkina Faso's national goals. That means no more massive land grabs to grow luxury exports or foreign cash crops. The priority is now food for Burkinabe families first. That's the shift. From feeding other nations while locals go hungry to food sovereignty, growing for survival, nutrition, and resilience. But the transformation goes even deeper. Land use isn't just about growing things, it's about processing, packaging, and selling them too. Under Traore's new strategy, industrial zones aren't reserved for foreign giants. They're prioritised for Burkinabe-owned businesses and regional partners. So instead of importing Italian tomato paste, Burkina will make its own. Instead of relying on Chinese grain mills, they'll run local ones. Grow local, process local, consume local. And no, it's not isolationism, it's discipline. The door isn't closed to the world. It's just no longer wide open for exploitation. And perhaps the most powerful outcome of this entire reform? Clarity. When land is state-managed, with national records and off-limits to speculation, disputes vanish. The guesswork disappears, no more fake titles, inheritance wars, or quiet bribes to keep what should never have been for sale. That means fewer lawsuits, fewer evictions, fewer threats, and most importantly, more confidence. Because you can't plant a future on shaky ground. Burkina Faso is betting on something bold, that securing the soil is the first step to securing the soul of the nation. And yes, the road ahead is steep, the infrastructure is stretched thin, the climate isn't forgiving, corruption doesn't disappear because you pass a law. But something deeper has shifted. For the first time in decades, the foundations are being rebuilt, not patched up, but reset. In this new system, land isn't a gift. It's not a political prize. It's not a luxury handed down to the powerful. It's a birthright, a duty, a beginning. And now that Burkina Faso has drawn its line, taken back its soil, and declared its future in its own hands, the real test begins. Not reclaiming the land, but repurposing it, giving it to people who will plant with it, build with it, feed their communities with it. That's what matters now. And Traore's administration gets that. This isn't about headlines, it's about harvests. The state isn't locking land away to hang it on a flagpole. It's opening it up with a plan. Phase 1, reclaim the land. Phase 2, redistribute it with purpose. And this time the first in line aren't CEOs. They're the people who never got in line to begin with. The small farmers. The men and women who've worked the land their whole lives, growing just enough to survive, while paying rent to landlords who never set foot in their fields. That ends now, because Burkina Faso believes that when you protect land, you protect life. And guess what? The continent is watching. From Nairobi to Lagos, from Harare to Algiers, leaders are leaning in, asking the same quiet question. Could this work here too? Could we finally break free from systems where land ownership is reserved for the rich and the foreign, while the people who live on it starve? Could this be the spark? Because Burkina Faso isn't acting alone. This didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't just appear in a press release. It's part of a much larger movement, a continental shift that's been bubbling under the surface for years. And right at the centre of that awakening, South Africa. In 2024, land reform roared back into South African politics, with more heat than the country had seen since the fall of apartheid. And this time, it wasn't just a local fight. It became a global clash. President Cyril Ramaphosa's government reignited the push for land expropriation without compensation. The laws that had protected colonial property rights for over a century were finally challenged, front and centre. The backlash, immediate. White landowners protested, Western investors freaked out. And then came Donald Trump, turning up the volume from across the ocean. He accused South Africa of racism, threatened to cut aid, tried to drag Elon Musk into the mess. Suddenly, land reform in South Africa wasn't just a domestic issue, it was an international firestorm. But South Africa didn't blink. They pushed forward, passed new motions, expanded their land court. By 2025, they were running pilot expropriation programs, taking land back, not with violence, but with law. Was it messy? Yes. Was it perfect? Not even close. If you found this video interesting and would love to watch more videos like this, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe.